Welcome to the Inflection Podcast, where we explore the pivotal moments that have shaped us into who we are today. I am your host, Anabi, and I can't wait to dive into these moments with you. Let's get it.
Welcome to another fantastic episode of the Inflection Podcast. I have the pleasure here today of interviewing the one and only Leslie Hill with us. Thank you so much. Thanks for hopping on. So
Thank you for having me.
we worked together years ago and started off. It was really cool to see your leadership and guidance in the agile space. And to a certain degree, you helped inspire me in agile because I remember then I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Do I want to be a scrum master, agile
Yep.
coach, products guy? And we had those conversations, and I don't think you need at the time, but you helped like plant seeds for how I'm doing product right now. You had the spark to get
Mm,
me into agile and find my voice and find my own thing in there.
Love it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
of course. But I wanted to dive into your own experience and foray, right,
Mm,
into the agile space. Now you're a leader in the agile space, but what did that look like for you to get started? Leslie, X amount of years ago, pre getting into the agile space. What was that like?
Yeah. So, two different questions embedded in one. I love it. Getting into the leadership space, one, and
Yep.
leadership space and Agile being a separate one. So, I'll tackle them separately and then together as well. So, first, getting into the leadership space, I think I've always just had this natural tendency to lead. When I would get burnt out at different stages of my career, my mom would say it wouldn't matter because I would say things like, "Oh, I'll just go be a greeter at Walmart and be happy," right? Like, just I'm a people person, so just let me talk to
Yeah.
people and I'll be happy. And she said, "Yeah, Leslie, you'd end up running and managing the Walmart, right?" It's just
I
who
love
I
it.
am. I can't help myself, whether I like it or not. It's just who God created me to be, and so I just step into that. So I've been leading both people leaders as well as influence without authority leading for, gosh, over 20 years now. Yes, I started when I was 10.
Awesome.
Yeah. So then from as long as you're a people leader, the content or what you're leading people, right? So the content doesn't really necessarily matter. So when I stepped into agile leadership, what that looked like is I was actually at a company where we were going through an agile transformation and the CEO came out and was extremely bold, and I love that, and was like, "We're burning the ships. If you're a project manager today, you're going to be a scrum master tomorrow. Program manager, you're going to be akin to a release train engineer in scaled agile. And we're going to do this thing, and we're burning the ships. There's no looking back." And at
That's
that
bold.
time, that's bold, right? That's very bold. Yeah. So at that time, I had very little knowledge of Agile. I heard about it, but I hadn't experienced it at all. And I was leading a team of project managers. So I am very much a believer in lead by example or don't lead at all. So I had to dig in and just dive right in and figure it out. And to my pleasant surprise, Agile is very much about relationships and people. So it was a natural fit for me.
Over processes, right? It's so easy, especially
Absolutely.
for even transformations like that. Sometimes we're trying to put things in place to make sure it happens well, and then it becomes a anti-pattern of the process is run us versus it's about the people who are running the
That's right.
processes. But that's cool.
Yeah.
The
So,
origin
and there were no
story.
stopping me since then. So I've been leading in an agile space, and that's been 10 maybe years now. So I guess it was 30 years before. Like I said, I started when I was 10. Yeah, that's my strong suit.
Oh no, that's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. What is one nugget from there, right? Your experience of getting into it and maybe your conceptions or, oh man, this will be hard, but you got into it and you realized pleasantly that, oh, actually it's about people and how to work with processes and tools and to work more efficiently. For someone who is at cusp of maybe they're just starting agile transformation or they're looking into it. what is one thing or a few things you might say to such an individual or maybe even an organization?
Yeah, definitely. If you are starting to go down that path of exploring ways of working in an agile way, there's a lot to learn on the soft skills side. If you're not a big people person, and like I said, in the organization I was in, it was straight up, you're in a process role, which was project and program management. And now you're going to be in a process role, which is Scrum Master / release train engineer, right? And that came with, I had a few team members that were reporting to me at the time. And there were some of the folks that preferred task management versus people management and preferred that. I hope this doesn't land bad with anybody, but whip cracking that comes along with project management, right? Get that done. Why hasn't that been done? Deadlines, due dates, scope, schedule, budget, all the rigid things that come along with traditional project management. So moving into an agile way of working where it was natural for me because I do love people and relationships. And so I was able to be authentic in learning the role and diving all the way into it. Some folks aren't. And so what I would caution is if you are not a people person, spend some time immersing yourself in soft skills because that's going to be the secret sauce with
I like
working
it.
in an agile way. Yeah.
We thank you so much for sharing that. One of the things that another angle I'd like to explore, right? So as a woman in and around the tech space, leading with authority sometimes, leading with influence most of the time in the agile
Yeah.
space, has that shaped how you operate in a unique way at all? Like, I don't care, I just get it done.
No, absolutely. It's funny. My first experience with women in tech, my first introduction into women in tech, it actually opened my eyes because I totally had a blind spot for realizing that I'm a woman in technology. I'm just have always been, like I said, I've always been a leader. I've always been also very vocal. And so I hadn't really ever had a problem speaking up. And so I never really noticed, call it lack of perception, but I hadn't really noticed that I was a woman in a room with all men. And when I got involved in women in tech, it actually opened my eyes. And I was like, yeah, I guess I am like in the minority in this space of women in technology. And what it really did for me was it helped me to recognize things that I wouldn't have recognized otherwise. And it gave me an opportunity to speak up against those things. One of the things that I'll call out is imposter syndrome, right? Typical with a woman is, oh, they would never give me this job if they knew what I know, or I'm a little bit timid. If I say something, maybe it's not going to land. That is typical in women. And so as I've been involved in women in tech now for a decade, probably, and part of my role in that space has been really to empower women to speak up and to pay attention and to be perceptive. What I have noticed, a couple of examples or experiences that I've had since those blinders have been removed and I've been a little bit more perceptive. I mentioned that I don't have a problem speaking up. I've noticed in a few examples, more than I'd like to admit, where I have said something and it completely has fallen flat. Nobody, like no comment, nothing. And I've actually recently, this happened to me even as early as last year. Actually, it might have even been this year, end of last year, beginning of this year. So within the last year, I actually said something in a leadership meeting and I said it twice before no comments, before a man stood up and said the exact same thing. And the leader in the room happened to say, "What a great idea," and called it out. And I ended up pinging the person and saying, I guess I didn't have enough testosterone or something like that.
Oh my
And he
God.
laughed, but he said, you know what, you're right. It was very obvious. So that still happens today in a company that prides itself on diversity and inclusion. And I would say it's not intentional. It's just people don't know. They just don't realize the unconscious biases that they have. So it's important to recognize those things and to give voice to them because we're not responsible for what we don't know, but we are responsible for what we know. So once you give voice to it, now you
Yeah,
have to pay a little bit more attention.
absolutely. Wow, that's a telling example. And I hope there's opportunity there to go deeper. It's interesting you brought it up and he acknowledged that and talked through that. But do you see change coming out of that? Or is just more it's the way things are?
No, that's a great question. So in my painting him clearly, I'm not going to be confrontational. I
Yeah.
say I'm going to speak up, but I will always speak up and be respectful and read the room, understand when I've said enough. But it's important to have male allies in the room in that case. And that's what I was using him for, as a male ally. And he did speak up and mentioned that I had said, as Leslie had said. So he did give voice, and having a
Amazing.
male ally in the room really helped bring those two things together. And it was a ooh moment. Oh no, that's uncomfortable. But making sure that you call those things out and having the courage to stand in that uncomfortable moment is the only way that we can make progress.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I saw this somewhere. I don't remember where I saw it. It was with regards to what did it say? You grow the more uncomfortable conversations you have, the more you grow. It was something
True.
around like our growth oftentimes, right, happens alongside also a lot of uncomfortable conversations. So as we shy away from those are potential areas where we could have grown or maybe even helped others
That's right.
grow. And by not having those conversations, like I tend to be not confrontational at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes like I'm like, okay, peace route. But sometimes you have to engage. It doesn't mean you're rude or anything, but you got to engage with them. So that's something even personally I'm learning to do better, to have those, to be assertive and call out things and have those conversations and then move on from there. That's cool you share that.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because one of the things titles that I tag myself as is a graceful disruptor. It is
I love
so
it. I feel
true.
that.
Graceful disruptor. It's being disruptive. I don't think anybody really enjoys confrontation. There's a very small percentage that are just confrontational by nature, but the
Yeah.
majority of us don't like it. It's just you see it as a necessary evil. And when you are able to gracefully disrupt, I think you are able to get people to hear you. And believe me, I'm not always graceful in my disruption, but it's
Hey,
definitely something I try.
that would make a name for a good podcast though, series, Graceful Disruptors. Hopefully
Yeah.
someone doesn't steal that. But hey, go for it.
Go
Um,
for it. It's not copyrighted.
So, so the one thing I've seen, right, in the past few years has just been so much evolution in the agile space. From when it was we were like, what's agile? Now, like everyone and their uncle knows what agile is, or at
Right.
least people I roll with, right? A lot of organizations know it. But do you see on the horizon from where you sit some opportunities there, some things coming down the pipeline in the agile space? That's broad purpose. Like you can go
Yeah, absolutely.
whichever angle you.
Absolutely. So, what I would say is probably the newest and is a little intimidating right now. I would say there's still a lot to learn, and I can see there's a there is an opportunity for the pendulum to swing a little too far, so we have to watch it. Is
Yeah.
the generative AI Scrum Master? So
Ooh.
that's actually a real thing. So Gen AI is So go look it up. It's Spinach Gen AI Scrum Master, and you'll see how they are leveraging artificial intelligence to augment, I won't say replace, but augment the Scrum Master role. And like I said, there is an opportunity for the pendulum to swing a little too far when people look at a Scrum Master role as being administrative or more secretarial. They're missing the point. What they have done so far with the Gen AI Scrum Master role is they've taken the administrative portion of a Scrum Master role and they've automated it, right? They've put artificial intelligence behind it. And it really allows the Scrum Master to sit more primarily in that human facing, relationship building, more psychologist role
Yeah.
that you cannot augment, at least not yet, There's no artificial intelligence for feeling. So it really is allowing the Scrum Masters more time to spend in building those relationships, getting into the psychology of the people that they're working with, and really trying to help them build better products that serve our clients and customers.
This is amazing. I'm bookmarking it so I can look more into it. So I've been looking into Gen AI and it's been coming up in many more conversations.
Yep.
As a product guy, I also use it quite a bit. So faster with writing user stories, PRD, at least first draft, and then I can go in, fill it out, and productivity has been off the charts using tools like this. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not a lot of these tools, and when we hear about AI, sometimes the gut reaction fears, oh my gosh, it's going to replace me, right? It's going to replace my job. But looking at it as a tool, so if you're an artist, this is your stencil or whatever
Right.
it's used to paint, and it just helps you be faster and then to focus on the core versus spending all the time in the minutiae and in the admin. So totally, I'm looking into it. This is awesome. I love it.
The one caution around all of the AI stuff that I would make, and I'm sure all of my cybersecurity friends would agree, is be careful because a lot of the chat GPT, a lot of the AI kind of open source technology that's out there is data mining, right? So you're using it and it's
Yeah.
collecting your data to get better. That's how it is. That's how it works. That's how the machine learning aspect works, right?
Yeah.
So be careful what you put out there because your proprietary information could get into the wrong hands. So if you're using it for generic stuff or general stuff just to aid you in helping your productivity, I 100% agree. That seems like it would be very helpful. But the
Yeah.
minute you start putting kind of any kind of innovative information into it, it's collecting all of that data and it's going to store it. And like I said, if it gets into the wrong hands, that could be dangerous for you, for your company, for your products. So I know a lot of companies are watching that very closely and not allowing public AIs technologies to be used inside their firewalls. And I'm sure a lot of the financial institutions are in that boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one caution I would throw out there. Don't forget cybersecurity.
100%. And there's still a lot of opportunity, even with that, for those building cybersecurity tools and security tools to put layers, right, of security around AI. Some companies are building their own LLMs. And I know there are some companies who serve large enterprises and they help within their firewalls build a large language learning model to deploy within. So not ChatGPT or any of the other ones. It's like proprietary and
Mhm.
custom. But I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And selfishly for me, it's also opportunity to create content and thought leadership around that because
Yeah,
it's still Wild West, right?
that's right.
In the AI space, so many companies are asking questions like, what the heck does this even mean? How does this change things? How do we use it? How can we use it safely? How can we innovate, but not lose our data, open ourselves up to
That's right.
breaches and things like that? So there is a massive opportunity there just to say, hey, these are ways to do it. Here's a playbook, here's a guide, and hey, here's some expertise to help you implement that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is one thing now, haha, the fun one, that you wish you knew when you started? And started here being, let's say, started in the agile space. Could be as a leader or at the very beginning of stepping into agile.
Yeah. One of the things that I wish I would have learned a little earlier in my career, but came with maturity is to, I'm going to use the word grace again, but to guard your passion with grace. Early on in my career, I was given some very good feedback by a leader that I hope would listen to this at some point because she really helped shape my career. This was in my early 20s. And I'm still the same person that I was back then. I'm just a lot more mature and I've learned a lot since then. At least I hope so. But what she said was, be careful how you say things and the way that you say things, because your passion can sometimes come off as being a bully. And that really, I've already talked about how much of a people person I am and how big relationships are to me in my heart. that struck the bullseye, right? It was like, what? There's somebody could actually look at me as being a bully. That's awful. I would never want my name to be in the same sentence as that word. And so I've worked really hard at making sure that when I feel like I've gone too far with my passionate perspective, whatever that is, my opinion or whatever, if I feel like I've wired a flag now, but once I feel like I've crossed it, then I try and backpedal and try and put some grace over that, because I really don't want to be viewed as a bully. And I'm super passionate and very opinionated. That definitely, that with my strong nature can come across in a negative way. So that's what I wish I would have learned as early as starting in a leadership position.
Oh man, that's a really good one. And for me, with regards to that, one of the things that I struggled with, and I'm still working on that, is the whole thing of being assertive, right? I almost
Mhm.
saw sharing my opinion sometimes as acting to being rude and intruding
Mm.
on people's perspectives. But I've had to learn, yes, I can share it, obviously, with grace. And people actually appreciate that. So they know what you're thinking versus, oh, I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be imposed. I don't want to impose. That's just something for me I've had to come to terms with and work on, just the assertiveness piece and sharing, saying, hey, I have a voice, I'll share it, but also reciprocating that for others and saying, you have a voice. And I want to hear that. Now let's dialogue and walk through that. Something I really struggled with at the beginning. I don't get it 1,000% each time, but I feel like I've been working on that over the years.
Yeah, it's funny too, being a woman in this space, right? That feedback of being a bully, while I 100% took it to heart, and I believe that it has completely shaped the way that I communicate now for the good, I believe.
Yeah.
The same way that I was communicating had I been a man would not have been viewed as being a bully. So it is again that double standard of unconscious bias that you don't understand the way women are speaking and the way men are speaking. And they can say the exact same thing with the same tone and context, and it can be perceived very different simply because the expectation of a woman is different than of a man. It's just I say that because I love how different we are, Anibi, how you just said you struggle with the courage to speak out and I struggle with pulling it back. And I just think if
Yeah.
we like swapped roles, we would fit the gender profile that society tries to label us with, right? So
Yeah.
much more. Like you would be a man, and so outspoken, you wouldn't be viewed as being a bully. And me being a little bit more timid, it would also come off. It's just funny. It's just something that I thought
It,
of when you were describing
it,
what.
it is funny. The whole like psychology, sociology, that does intrigue me a lot, and diving into that. And I think that's part of, honestly, maturity too. Like just there's a lot of nuance in conversation with different, genders and different experiences and different cultures. You and I work for companies and have worked for companies with globally distributed teams. And that's just something I've seen play out so much that you constantly have to adjust gears
Yeah.
because there's just so much at play there. And for me, I think that's part of the fun. If everyone was all the same and fit the mode perfectly, what's the fun in that? But just having to understand at this point now, you're understanding the specific individual and adjusting gears based on that. So seeing it from that perspective for me, it's, oh, this is fun. We're just gonna have to keep adjusting and having to figure it out till the curtains close. And lastly on that, when you're not building teams and doing fun agile stuff, like what fills your tank? What do you do for fun?
So a couple of things. One is I lead a small group from a Bible study from church, which I
Nice.
love. It's people, again, community, people building, doing life with people that are walking through the same stage of life as me. I learn a lot from them. And so it's great to learn together. That's one. And then the other side is I'm a
There is more.
huge football fan. I'm a huge football fan. So I live in Arizona and I bought season tickets to the Cardinals, even though
Oh,
I am
wow.
a die-hard 49er fan. I bought season tickets just so that I can go watch football every single week live and in person if
Yeah.
they're in town. So yeah, I love those things. Faith, family, and football. The 3 Fs.
Check, check. I love it. Hey, thank you so much, Leslie. I appreciate
Yeah,
you
thank you.
being on the podcast with me today. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to more collabs. I always enjoy our conversations together.
Same. Thank you, Anivy. It's been very nice to be here. So thank you so much for the invitation.